and welcome back to the TMDSAS podcast. I'm Enrique, the coordinator of research, advising services, and digital media at the TMDSAS office in Austin, Texas. With this series, we hope to close the gap for non-traditional applicants by connecting our listeners with advisors and admissions officers that address topics that will apply not just to non-traditional applicants, but to all applicants. Today, we are very fortunate to be joined by Dr. Latanya Love at the McGovern Medical School again. Welcome back, Dr. Love.
Thank you. Glad to be back.
Well, we're very glad to have you because this whole initiative with helping out our non-traditional applicants actually stemmed from a conversation with you. So we really want to thank you for that conversation and for your initiative in getting a lot of our non-traditional applicants the resources that they need.
Happy to do so. I am someone who really loves meeting non-traditional applicants. There are so many really wonderful things about our non-traditional applicants that they bring to the table. So we really want to make sure that they have all the information that they need to be a successful applicant.
Absolutely. Well, before we get started into our discussion about non-traditional applicants, can you give us a little glimpse of what's going on behind the scenes now that, we are pretty solid into the application season and TMDSAS is transmitting the applications over to the schools? What's going on in McGovern with the application?
So this is a very busy season for us right now. We are actually in the process of screening all of those people that got their applications in early and on time. And I don't want to say on time, but got them in early. And we are reviewing. We have a committee that screens applicants, and we do a holistic review process here. So we are looking at so many different factors to pick people to invite for interviews. And we will start our interview season in August. So we will start sending out invitations for that in the next few weeks.
Wow. Crunch time's coming.
Crunch time's coming, but it's a lot of fun. It's always really exciting to read about all the wonderful applicants, and we have so many wonderful applicants and who are doing just really neat things. So it's a really busy time for us, but it's really an exciting time as well.
Well, I'm glad you brought up the fact that you're kind of reading all of the different applications that are coming in. For our non-traditional applicants, they're kind of coming from a different place in that a lot of times they kind of have to explain their decision on why they'd like to pursue medicine as a career. Do you have some insight on how a non-traditional applicant can stand out?
So I think the first question an admissions committee is going to want to know is, why medicine, why now? So I think when you are writing your personal statement, you really need to think about the reasons that you are shifting careers. And we want to make sure that it's been a thoughtful decision, because medical school, we know it's a lot of work. You are putting in a lot of years. It's all worth it, but it's a lot of work. So we want to make sure that, it was a decision that was very thoughtful. So I think you really want to make sure that the medical school admissions committees really know that it's been something that you've thought about, and ways you can do that. Have you done some recent shadowing, some recent volunteer work, things to kind of make sure you're abreast with the field now. And then in your essay is, I think, a really good place to talk about why you're making the transition, if it was from a previous career, or why you're deciding to apply to medical school now. I think your personal statement is a wonderful place to do that.
Definitely some solid advice there. And something that's really interesting is that all this advice we're offering non-traditional applicants is actually directly applicable to all applicants.
Absolutely. I think a lot of the advice we would give non-traditional applicants is the same advice that we would give, any applicant who was applying to medical school, to make sure that you've been thoughtful about applying to medical school, that, you are requesting letters of recommendations from people that know you very well and that are going to write you a strong letter. One of the differences with non-traditional students is a lot of times their letters, since they're a little bit, some of them more removed from their undergraduate years. It may be from somebody who they've taken post-bac courses from. It may be from a work supervisor. So just make sure whoever you're getting a letter from is somebody that's going to write you a strong and a positive letter is what we're looking for. And, we're looking for people who we like, balanced applicants who have some, experiences that they have done, even if it's in your undergraduate year, if it's when you've been out. So we like to see, what have you been doing? What are some things that you've been involved in with your community? We want to know all of those things about you. And so really try to think about what sets you apart. We get so many applications. So, think about what are some of your unique experiences that might set you apart. That, especially for our non-traditional applicants, you have a lot more life experiences historically. So we want to know a little bit more about that.
Even if those life experiences aren't necessarily medically related, a lot of those skills are actually transferable into medicine, right?
You are so right. One of the best medical students that I think that I have worked at, she just really great interpersonal and communication skills. And she was a student that I worked with when she was a third year. And, when I was giving her some feedback at the end of the rotation, and I told her, I said, you just really, what a great communicator you are. She did really well with the patients and their families. And you know what she told me? She told me that she really learned those skills from being a Starbucks barista. So, it's just really interesting. She said that really helped her to be a better people person and to communicate a lot better. And so you're absolutely right that a lot of your experiences that you have in life can help you, when you are a physician.
Absolutely. Well, can we get a little glimpse into the type of advice or common questions that you get from non-traditional applicants?
So I think, a lot of non-traditional applicants will ask us questions about, where should they take the prerequisite courses, because you still have to go and do the prerequisite courses. And, there's no standard answer for that. There's a lot of options that you have, whether it's a community college, if it's a, even the undergrad that you went to, or maybe a university or college that's in the town that you're living in. So we get a lot of advice about that. And, we tell the students that a lot of times you have to look at your situation and decide kind of what would be the best option for you. So as long as you take those courses and they're, approved courses to count towards your prereqs by TMDSAS, we absolutely will accept them. A lot of times when you're taking prereqs, you can meet some other advisors. A lot of them, a lot of these schools, have people that can help, with some questions about navigating medical school. And if they don't, these are great resources. These podcasts are very good resources as well, if you're looking for advice. And, we talked about a little bit earlier about the letters of recommendation and who they should come from. And again, we want really strong letters. You want people that know you. We can always tell when somebody's writing a letter from you, and you can tell it's obvious they don't know you. So it's probably better to get a letter that's going to be a strong one from somebody who knows you pretty well. We recommend, if you're able to get some shadowing, that's great, but we know that shadowing is becoming harder and harder for a lot of our applicants, and as a medical school admissions committee, we recognize that. So even if you're not able to, you're having a hard time finding shadowing opportunities, you can always do volunteer work at hospitals, you can volunteer work in the emergency rooms, things like that, where you're still able to have some experiences in the healthcare arena. So we just really want to make sure you kind of know what you're getting into.
Excellent advice, and this actually coincides really well with everything that we've been exploring in this non-traditional applicant series of the podcast. And let's assume that somebody comes into your office and is exploring a second career in medicine. Could you kind of give us a glimpse into what kind of advice you'd give them, and in kind of taking consideration of what they're planning on getting into, and what advice you'd offer them specifically?
So I think the first thing is I'm going to say, why do you want to go into medicine now? So really, we want you to be thoughtful about that and, understanding the transition that you might have to take. And then we're just going to talk about what are the prerequisites that you're going to have to take, and what might be some options for you. And you can probably explain better than I can about, certain things that may be applicable to non-traditional applicants like Fresh Start. So we want to make sure they know what are their options when they're applying. And, I always encourage people, do not rush to apply, to turn in an application. We want to make sure that when you submit your application, it is the strongest application and it really reflects, all of the wonderful qualities that you have. So sometimes it's even better to, wait a year before you apply to make sure that you've had time to really prepare for the MCAT. And everybody prepares in different ways, but we want to make sure that, you have thought about, how am I going to prepare? Do I have the time to prepare for the MCAT? Because if you're a non-traditional student or if you're somebody who's working and you have a full-time job, you really just have to take into account, the study time. So, put yourself on a schedule and just we go through an outline of, okay, so this is July. So what is our plan for like the next 6 months to a year to get you to that application process? So you have to think about that. And the other thing that we don't always talk about, but I think it's important too, is if you're somebody who's been working and then you're trying to transition into a full-time student, you really need to think about the financial implications of that as well. So we want to make sure that you're thinking about, how are you going to be able to, have the resources that are necessary for, your review materials for the MCAT, to take the courses that you need to get your applications in. We just really want to make sure that students are thinking about all of those aspects that go into the application process.
Absolutely. And we definitely will be talking more about logistics behind the scenes, like academic fresh start, talking a little bit more about the prerequisites later on in the series as well. So Dr. Love, in your position, you actually have the opportunity to interact with a lot of medical school students. Can you think of a few instances or examples of what a non-traditional student looks like once they actually get into medical school?
So we have lots of non-traditional students here at McGovern, and I have to say that they are absolutely outstanding. I have noticed over the years that a lot of times our non-traditional applicants are some of our strongest students, and a lot of that is because they're very disciplined. Sometimes we've had students who have families, and they really know that they have to make their school and study time count because they have to balance that between personal time with their family. So they are very, very committed and dedicated. So I think I have been very impressed by our non-traditional students. One of the programs that we actually have here, and we do invite all of our non-traditional students to participate in this, and we're actually just finishing this up this coming week. It's called our Medical School Pre-Entry Program. And this is a program where we invite selected students that we feel might benefit from the program, and the non-traditional students do fall into this category. We invite them to come up to our school about 4 to 5 weeks before school actually starts, and it's almost like we give them a preview of some of the first year of medical school. They get to go into the anatomy lab, they get some physiology, they have the opportunity to meet a lot of our basic science faculty as well as to get to know our student affairs deans. And we have found that this is a nice way to transition our non-traditional students, and it is an optional program, so you don't have to attend, but we invite students, and we find that a large majority of them will take advantage of this, and they are always so grateful for this, because I do find that sometimes when you've been kind of out of school for a few years, you have some insecurities. Oh, can I do this? Am I really smart enough to do this? It's almost like that imposter syndrome, like, did they pick the right person? Am I really supposed to be here? And I always tell them, absolutely, we very rarely make mistakes in who we pick, and you are going to do just fine. And I think a lot of times that pre-entry program helps to give those students the confidence that they need to know that they are going to be successful. So I think one of the things that non-traditional students should do is when they are looking at schools that they're applying to to look at some of the support systems that are available for them, because we always say here at McGovern, we want to make sure we get you through school, and we want you to be the most successful medical student as you can be. And so we've got a lot of support systems in play for students, for all students, to make sure that they are as successful. And the pre-entry is just an example of one of those. But, our non-traditional students really are so wonderful, and they add so much richness and diversity to our class, just because they can bring that life experience or, whatever you were doing before medicine. And those are the things that I think really enhance the class when you've got that diversity, and non-traditional students absolutely add to that. And it's really wonderful to see the relationships that are formed between the different students that matriculate here.
Great. Thank you for sharing that. What kind of pitfalls do non-traditional students typically face that a traditional student might not, and how can we avoid those?
So I think that a lot of it is just sometimes it's from, other responsibilities that may be outside of school. So, for example, a lot of our non-traditional students may have spouses or significant others. They may have children. So it's really finding that balancing act. So, you want to make sure that, your support system is aware of, all the time that, medical school takes, and they're aware of your schedule, because there's going to be peaks when you're, close to a test and you're going to be really, really busy studying. And then, there'll be some other times when you have a little bit more free time. Another thing that we do here at McGovern because we recognize that can be an issue, especially for non-traditional students, we actually do an orientation for parents and spouses or significant others, and we walk them through the hospital. They get to talk to some of our students. They get almost a glimpse in the day of the life of a medical student, because if you're not from a medical background, you really might not have any idea of what it means. And they get to see this is where they're going to study, this is we show them this is the anatomy lab, these are our classrooms. So it really helps them to give a better understanding of what their loved one is going through. And I think that's important, because your family is going to be a strong support for you while you are in medical school. And so we want to make sure that they understand what you're going through. So I would say that sometimes just trying to balance everything can be a challenge for non-traditional students. But I am really big at telling all of our students, make a schedule. You should have a schedule for every day. And in that day, and this is something you can start doing now, even as a pre-med student, in your schedule, you even put in your breaks, you put in when you're going to eat, you put in, what you're going to study, you're going to put in, if you have an appointment that day, you're going to put that in. But, really try to make a mock schedule for the day. Now, we all know we're human, and our schedules don't always go as we've planned them, and that's okay. But sometimes if you even build in a cushion at the end of the week to try to catch up, because we want to make sure that our students don't get behind. So that's why I think it's important to, put in a schedule, even time to, exercise, time to do things that you enjoy as well as when you're studying. So I encourage everybody, if you're not doing it now, and technology makes it so easy with our phones to, kind of put a schedule in your phone or somewhere, so that you're really trying to manage your time wisely. And I think that's a skill that I always, tell people who are thinking about applying to medical school, start learning time management skills, right now.
Really, really wonderful advice. And I hope our listeners are really heeding that, because again, all of this advice is really applicable to any applicant, not just our non-traditional students. And these skills really translate over into their professional lives.
Absolutely.
Well, Dr. Love, before we let you go, is there any final advice you'd like to give our applicants?
So, I think that I would recommend that you listen to all of these podcasts that are available to you guys. This is some really valuable information, and we really are so grateful to be able to share this information with you. And remember, don't rush your application. If you feel that there's some things you might need to do to work on the application, whether that's, taking your MCAT over or, taking some post-bac classes, we don't want you to rush. It's perfectly fine to sit out a year and then apply the next year. And really, take advantage of all these resources and, anyone around you to try to get some really good advice. And we look forward to seeing these applications. As a matter of fact, that's what I'm going to do next. I am sitting here screening applications. So we look forward and welcome, your application at the right time.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Don't forget to subscribe to the TMDSAS podcast. Follow us at facebook.com/TMDSAS, on Twitter at TMDSAS, and at TMDSAS support. And send us your questions or comments about the podcast at podcast@tmdsas.com. We look forward to continuing to support our applicants with these resources and support to help you shine through in your application. On behalf of TMDSAS, once again, we want to wish all of our applicants for this application cycle all the best of luck. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you later.